This is something we did during of course, the first session for matters related to LDC, of which we reported on what we are doing as LEG in supporting the LDC's countries. So at the outset, we would like to have welcoming remarks, of course, from the High Representative of the least developed countries, landlocked developing countries, and small island developing states, of which we are privileged to have here Her Excellencies, Ms. Fatima, to give that opening remarks. And then thereafter, the LEG will then share its works on accelerating support to the LDC on adaptation. The event will also be an opportunity to launch the LEG's latest publication on mapping resources for NAPS. So we will have one presentation from a colleague to give to you what we have been doing to support the LDC, and then another presentation to launch the mapping resources for NAP. Additionally, we will hear from representatives of Mozambique and then Bangladesh on their country's progress in the progress, of course, to formulate and implement their NAPs and outlook, because also try to use this event at least as a kind of an experience sharing, having countries to share, of course, their process when it comes to formulation, and also in some aspects implementing their NAPs. So lastly, the Green Climate Fund and the Global Environment Facility will share information on the latest developments on financial and technical support to the LDCs. We all know that for the LEG, we're also trying to serve as a kind of a midway to see how we can connect the funding mechanism under the UNCCC and other resources to work with the LDCs to see at least for them to have their NAP and then to also implement some of the adaptation priorities. So we also invite the FAO to share the progress made by the NAP Technical Working Group in support of the NAPs. So before we start, can I ask LEG members that are present here to please stand up, at least for you guys to recognize, I'm sure. All right, Gassom? Just let them see anyway, yeah. So now I think we have a colleague here, Gassom, so the LEG we have up to 70 members. Others, of course, will join us, some of them that are on site. Thank you very much. So on this note, I have the pleasure now to invite the High Representative for the least developed countries, landlocked developing countries, and small island states, Her Excellency Ms. Rabah Fatima, at least to deliver the keynote address. Her Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair. His Excellency Mr. Gabriel Kapaka, Chair of the LDC Expert Group, distinguished colleagues, dear friends. I would like to thank you, Chair, for inviting me to speak at this important event. And I thank the LEG for providing continued invaluable support to the LDCs on capacity building and technical support, especially for preparing NAPs. The work of this group is of critical importance to building resilience in the LDCs, but the work also benefits the developing countries as a whole. Last year at Sharm el-Sheikh, we celebrated 20 years of support for the LDC group of the LEG. Since then, we have taken several significant steps forward. At this COP, we have already made significant progress on operationalizing the Loss and Damage Fund. The various pledges made are an important first step in capitalizing the fund, but we all agree that far more is needed. Distinguished colleagues, allow me to share some recent developments from my office to support the LDCs in addressing climate change. First, at the 5th United Nations Conference on the LDCs, which was organized by my office in Doha, Qatar, in March this year, demonstrated strong political support and commitment to mobilize further resources and partnerships to implement the Doha Program of Action for the LDCs. In Doha, many new commitments and partnerships were announced in support of climate action in LDCs at the different tracks of the conference, including the Private Sector Forum, the meeting of the UN system principles convened by the UN Secretary General, as well as the ministerial meeting on South-South cooperation and other stakeholder events. The Doha Program of Action itself has highlighted climate vulnerability as a major obstacle for the LDC's efforts to achieve sustainable development. It commits to mainstreaming resilience building across the various priority areas of the Program of Action, including key areas such as infrastructure, sustainable energy, ICT, sustainable industrialization, building productive capacity, leveraging science, technology, and innovation, and more. The new Program of Action for the LDCs emphasized prioritizing adaptation and the preparation of National Action Adaptation Plans, the NAPs. To support its implementation, my office is actively seeking to mobilize funding to support the 20 LDCs that are furthest behind in the preparation of their NAPs in cooperation with the UNFCCC Secretariat. Mr. Chairman, second, my office is working on a report to assess the status of multi-hazard early warning systems in the LDCs and making recommendations for addressing the gaps. This will complement the Secretary General's early warning for all initiatives. As you will know, currently the initiative has identified a first group of 30 countries for priority action, and that includes 19 least developed countries. In my role as a member of the Advisory Board of the Secretary General's Early Warning Initiative, I'm advocating for including more LDCs, included among the priority countries, as well as ensuring that a fair share of funding flows are ensured for them. These activities are part of my engagement to operationalize one of the 5 key deliverables of the Doha Program of Action on enhanced resilience building. As part of this overall package, my office is also mobilizing technical assistance to LDCs on financial risk management, especially as it relates to climate disasters, and support them to engage with a consortium of leading companies from the insurance sector with a view to closing the gap in insurance coverage. Third and finally, I would like to draw your kind attention to 2 upcoming conferences which offer important opportunities to integrate adaptation planning into national sustainable development frameworks for the 25 LDCs that are also either landlocked developing countries or small island developing states. And namely, these 2 events are the 4th International Conference for the Small Island Developing States that will be held in Antigua and Barbuda in May of next year, and the 3rd United Nations Conference on Landlocked Developing Countries, which will be held in Kigali, Rwanda in June 2024. And it may be noted that of the 32 landlocked countries, 16 of them are in Africa, and 17 of the 32 landlocked countries are also LDCs. And this is the first time the meeting is taking place in Africa, so there is an ample opportunity to really focus attention on the LDCs there. The preparatory meetings for both these conferences have highlighted the important role of developing and implementing climate adaptation strategies for the new Program of Action. Such major international processes provide the opportunity to bring about synergies across international sustainable development frameworks, synergies on SDGs implementation, and it can further raise the political profile, we believe, of securing greater adaptation funding in forums other than climate change negotiations. I think it's very, very important that the new programs of actions of these countries fully integrate climate change adaptation measures in their programs of actions as a priority. In this regard, the upcoming 4th International Conference on Financing for Development to be held in 2025 will offer also important opportunities for further synergies with climate change finance. Mr. Chairman, distinguished colleagues, as I conclude, I would like to extend my sincere thanks and appreciation again to LEG for your strong support as well as for your leadership, and also my deep thanks to UNFCCC Secretariat for its work on the LEG adaptation and the loss and damage process. And you can count on the continued full support of my team and I in the coming days. Let me rest it here, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much, Excellency, Ms. Fatima, for your words and also for highlighting the ways in which you've been supporting the LDC. So, from the side of the leg, of course, we look forward to continued support, at least for us in making sure that the LDCs, they all could have their NAP. That is the first priority for us as an LDC, and also in making sure that they can implement the priorities that are associated in their NAPs. Thank you very much. Yes, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, we can now go to the next agenda items that has to do with the launch of the LEG publications on mapping of resources. So the LEG is pleased to announce the release of our new publications, which is entitled Mapping of Available Resources of Finance for Climate Change Adaptation for the Least Developed Countries. So I now wish to invite Ms. Sonam from the Secretariat to do the presentation. Ms. Sonam, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. Very pleased to be here. So the recent publication of the LEG on mapping of available sources of finance for climate change adaptation for the least developed countries. Next slide, please. The mandate for this has come as per the decision from COP26, whereby the LEG was mandated to share information on the various sources of finance that are available, not just the UNFCCC financial mechanisms, but also outside of that as part of its outreach activities. In terms of the scope of this publication, the information in terms of need focuses on concrete adaptation actions, enabling activities such as capacity building, training and outreach, support to maintain the process to formulate and implement NAPs and other adaptation plans. And as I was mentioning, in terms of the landscape of funding that was looked at, it was international and multilateral funding mechanisms, bilateral funding, and private sector investments. Next slide, please. So the document provides different navigations. It looks at a navigator that looks at the different actors that are there and what different actors can access in terms of funding. So what kind of funds the governments can access, NGOs can access, and the private sector. Next slide, please. And also then it looks at the major types of needs. And I was mentioning in terms of the NAPs, you have the concrete adaptation actions, capacity building and outreach activities, and also the NAP readiness. Next slide, please. We've also provided a navigation based on the size of the financing required. So this navigation actually assists you in looking at if you're interested in a micro project, which funding you would be able to access, and then the different processes through which you would be able to then access the financing available. This will be an interactive document, so you're able to maneuver through the documents using the different hyperlinks that will be available in the document. Next slide, please. So this is just a snapshot of what is inside the document. So it links you to a brief description of the funding that's available. And then there's also an applicable context, basically highlighting the different checklists in terms of what the funding is responsible for. Next slide, please. So as I was mentioning, this is going to be a living document, which means we will be updating it as and when fundings have updated information. We'll also be looking at putting in new additional information and sources of financing whenever it's available. And this will be available very soon on the NAP Central. For now, it is going to be available on the LEG website. So thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much, Sonam, for presenting on the publication on mapping of resources. So these are just one of the areas of support we are giving to LDC. So it's our hope that they can use these resources, at least when it comes to their process of formulating their NAPs, also implementing some of their programs, and not only for the LDC, and also other delivery partners that are supporting the LDCs. So, and it's worth noting that this publication will be made available on our website, the LEG website, so it's a living document and can get access to that. So, with that said, I would just want now we have the representative from the LDC group, the chair from the LDC, so the representative is here. So I think we can give you the floor at least to make a remarks, and then we can continue the rest of the program. So Dr. Wanadia, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. My apologies. I represent the LDC chair, because she's enabled to come at the last minute. So our apologies. On her behalf, I may say as a founder of the leg, because in 2000 we started fighting for this. It's now effective, and we have this committee, this group working very well. I just listened some presentations. Really, we are proud as LDCs. We are proud. And let me take the opportunity to welcome Ms. Fatima. Yes, you made it, and thanks for coming and support the LDCs. So we'll continue fighting for our vulnerable communities. So, Chair, as we are a bit late, I don't want to take much time. Congratulations to you, and we keep having our eyes on how you are working. But as I said, really we are proud, and we will continue supporting the leg. So thank you very much, and have a very good evening. Thanks.
Yes. So thank you very much, Dr. Wanadia, for your kind words. So we are grateful, and then for the side of the leg, we'll continue providing the support to the LDC as per our mandate. Thank you very much. So I think with that said, we can now rearrange the podium for the next set of presentations. So I'll ask Her Excellency, Ms. Fatima, and then, of course, the representative, Dr. Wanadia, at least to take a seat over there. All right, then, yeah. So, okay, thank you, yeah. So, is Kangason coming or you can just come present there? Present there? Gasson can come here? Gasson there. So, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, so I now invite you for us to go to the next agenda items that has to do with accelerating support to the LDC on adaptation. So as you know, the leg, of course, we are committed to accelerating support to the LDC in all spheres of the adaptation. So for today, we have our colleague here, of course, the leg member, Mr. Gassom Vandares, that is going to do the presentation. And then thereafter, we can, after us, open the floor for some discussion. So Gassom, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair, for giving me the floor, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Gershom van der Elst. I'm a LEG member on behalf of the Netherlands, and happy to talk you through in 5 minutes about an update on the NAPs and also the work of the LEG. Next slide, please. So this slide provides an overview of the progress made in the process to formulate and implement the NAPs, from formulating the NAPs to accessing DCF readiness support, to submitting NAPs, implementing and accessing funding. And if we zoom in on the LDCs, 22 out of the 46 LDCs have produced and submitted a NAP so far, while among the other LDCs, there are 16 that are still in the process of formulating a NAP, and 7 LDCs have not yet been able to formulate a NAP, unfortunately. So if we zoom in further on the progress in the formulation of NAPs, there are LDCs are receiving support for developing their NAPs, and but this support is insufficient at this moment, since only 11 out of the 22 LDCs have been able to fulfill the full process of NAP formulation with DCF readiness support, but there's also other support available, and there are 12 LDCs that are still waiting for approval to access the DCF readiness support. Thank you. Then, if we further turn to the implementation of the NAPs, there are so far 12 projects approved from LDCs that actually have submitted their NAPs. And currently there is no difference regardless whether LDC have approved their NAP already or not in accessing the funding. But ideally, the funding would move from project-based funding to more programmatic-based funding, because all the different elements of the NAPs are interrelated, and it's important that all priority elements are actually being implemented. Thank you. There are also several initiatives to advance the implementation of NAPs in LDCs, and one of these initiatives is also the initiative that launched by the LEC on the implementation pipeline development. And under this initiative, the LEC supports LDCs in the project development, writing concept notes to access funding under the GCF, the GEF, and the LDCF. And one of the ways by doing that is through organizing writing workshops. And so far, there have been four project ideas approved by the GCF and the GEF as part of this process, only since 2022. So this work has recently started, but it's already providing great results. Thank you. Then we just pause a moment to look at the total funding that has been accessed by LDC so far under the GCF. And then we turn to the actual work of the LEC. Thank you. Yeah. So let me zoom in on the vision of the LEC, and that's very concretely to have concrete results on advancing adaptation in the NAPs. It is about robust and quality NAPs, and about helping accessing funding for the implementation of the NAPs. And if this vision will truly become true, then all LDCs will be able to have submitted their NAPs, and all LDCs will have a well-integrated national adaptation structure. Thank you. So in order to implement the vision of the LEC's work program for 23-24 has a couple of priority work areas, and I will highlight a few. So we will continue to support developing the NAPs. We'll also continue supporting the drafting of funding proposals, collaborating with the GCF and the GEF to advance access to funding, and also providing technical guidelines for the NAPs, of course. Then the work of the LEC is organized in 4 subgroups, being the NAP technical guidelines subgroup, the subgroup on NAP implementation support, one on NAP tracking and monitoring, and the one on multi-stakeholder forums that also organizes the NAP Expo. And if you want to know more about the work of these 4 subgroups, we also have another event that's scheduled on the 8th of December, where we dive deeper into the work we do here. So we have a number of key deliverables for 2024, and of course, to implement our work program. And I would like to highlight a few. Like into 2023, the LEC will also produce a progress report on the status of NAPs in 2024. We will provide further technical guidelines for NAP implementation, and we will organize NAP writing workshops and, of course, the NAP Expo in 2024. Speaking about the NAP Expo, I would like to highlight that we have a 10-year anniversary now. Since 2013, the LEC has organized 8 NAP Expos, and I think we should celebrate this moment because the NAP Expos have really been able to bring together experts in the field of adaptation, help make possible solutions on food and on water, and also provides technical guidance to the formulation and the implementation of NAPs. Then finally, I would like to turn to where the LEC can also help you with. So there is a LEC roster of experts that's meant for LDCs to help them in implementing and formulating the NAPs. It's mostly local experts from LDCs that can help you in these phases of the NAPs. Sorry. Yeah, and finally, as already highlighted also by the Secretariat, there are a number of LEC publications, and I would like to highlight here the NAP Progress Report 2023, which provides further details on the actual status of NAPs and yeah, the advancement of the LDCs in the different phases. And you can access all these materials on the website. If you, yes please, if there's any further questions beyond what you can access on the website, then I think I'll give the word to the chair to answer any questions you still have.
Yes, thank you very much, Gassam, for walking us through what we've been doing as a leg. So at this point, we'll now open the floor for some quick questions and answer. So if you have any specific questions, you can raise your hands and they will identify you and they can direct the questions. Any requests for the floor? Okay. So, okay, yes, we have one. So, Rohini. Yeah, over there, yeah.
Thank you so much, Chair. I'm Rohini from UNDP, and it's really, I mean, this is a very important, I think, report, and some of the points raised are extremely important. Actually, I think wanted to talk about a couple of things. I think the question about the, some of the LDCs are preparing NAPs, in the third or fourth year of their programs. So I just wanted to also ask maybe that these NAP programs which the GCF readiness is supporting, they have lots of activities as well as formulation of NAPs. So I think one of the reasons why it's happening in the third or fourth year is because the LDCs are trying to do a very thorough job and do risk assessments and collect new information, etc. So maybe this is, I think, maybe it's important to look into details. As UNDP, we have tried to accelerate our support, and I think about 22 LDCs have submitted their NAPs with our support, but some of it through GCF readiness, in which case there are new information gathering exercises, and some through other programs where the new risk assessments were not done. So I think that there is a wide variation in the type of NAPs that can be put, and it'd be good to get a feedback from the leg on that. And also, Chair, on the NAP writing workshops, I think all of us really support also this work next year, and also to see and to make a suggestion that the direct access entities of the LDCs that don't have programs, can also be engaged so that there can be an expansion of the project pipeline further. And I think lastly, the Adaptation Pipeline Accelerator Initiative, I think that has been recognized that there are a few LDCs getting the benefit of that, and it would be good to see if there can be more LDCs that can also be included in that group. So maybe these are just some reflections back to the leg for that. And I think this mapping of resources is really, really critical. So we look forward to also, with other agencies contributing to that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Any other requests for the floor before we? Okay. I think then we are fine. So I can now give the floor to Gassam, and then I can reflect on some, yeah.
Thank you very much, Rohini, for these remarks, very valuable remarks. I think also some of the elements that you mentioned, they were on the slides, but since we had to limit the presentation time, I did not mention all of them, but indeed, for instance, the NAP pipeline accelerator is an important one, and also think it's great that you also pointed to the diversity of NAP. So one of the objectives of the LEC is also to have robust and high quality NAP. So we definitely also support LDCs looking into the different criteria and assessments that they have that they are doing. And it's also great that you pointed out that there's different sources of support available also beyond the GCF readiness. So I think I leave it there and leave it to the chair to provide further reflection.
Yeah, thank you very much, Rohini. Yes, for the reflection, especially like the one you made mention of for those of them that are in the process of formulating their NAPs, I think some of them maybe the delay has to do with some of the processes within their countries. So from the leg, we used to take stock of some of the challenges they are being faced with. So there are areas of them. Some of them, of course, they don't have access to the readiness fund for formulating their NAPs, but nonetheless, they are using, some of them are using either other resources to have their NAPs. So the intention that when the readiness is being approved, then they can use it to implement some of the aspects within their project, or maybe to even update their NAPs, because the NAP itself is a living document and it's iterative, and that can be used. Of course, we both work on that, definitely. And for most countries, I think one thing they are faced with is the risk assessment. Because most of them, when you go to the country, they have age-old historical risk assessment, and they are pushed for them to have a new risk assessment going forward. But as from the side of the leg, we are like very pious to see that all LDC have their NAPs. So the idea is they can use the available resources and policies they have to have their first NAP. So as it's going, if it's an iterative process, they can also try to update their NAP going forward. And then the suggestion you made for the NAP writing workshop, I think is a welcoming one. And this is something we've been looking at from the side of the leg, at least for the year ahead, to see that we look through what we've done and then to redesign the scope. Because one, we have now, for most of the countries, they have their project team that will be trained. Because you know that what we're pushing for is to see that from the parts of the country, for them to look through the NAPs, or whatever available programs or policies they have that speaks to adaptation, and then they prioritize these activities to single out a particular project, be it one or two. And then when they look through, because it's like for them just to put the ideas together, and then they can identify a delivery partner, be it UNDP, the UNEP, and others, and then they can work together, so that at least they can try to address most of the vulnerable sectors in their country. So yes, going forward, to make sure that the direct access entities and others can also be looped in going forward. Well, of course, you know that from the side of the leg, most of this work will make sure that we will talk with RAs and different people that support our work to see that we have a very good one. So thank you very much for that, it's well noted. So if you don't have further requests for the floor, then I just kindly request that we go through the next session. And it has to do with the experience from the LDCs, for us to see, because we've been supporting it, for them now to tell us what are the processes they'll be using to have their NAPs or implement their NAPs. So without just quick adjustments, so I will call on, of course, my colleague, Gaston, can go down. Then I want to call on the colleagues from Mozambique and Bangladesh. They can join us here now. Madam Kala, Marina, and also Mr. Hamoud Hussein. Kala, where is Hussein? Okay, yeah, join us here, please, yeah. I don't want to be left alone. Okay, yeah. Okay, so thank you very much. This is one of the most important sites for us and for all of us. So the Mozambique and Bangladesh, they've agreed, of course, with us to share some key highlights on the progress, of course, they've been doing when it comes to the formulation and implement their NAPs. So first, we'll start with Mozambique, and then we go to Bangladesh. So with that, if we are up, I now invite Miss Kala Marina, of course, from Mozambique, to highlight Mozambique transition to the NAP implementation. Kala, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you. First, I would like to apologize for my English. As you know, in my country, our official language is Portuguese, not English. But I will try to do my best. Although it is a NAP in our country, it is a participatory process with the involvement of all sectors. But we believe it is important to make the domestication and dissemination of the NAP at all levels. Emphasizing the strategic action of each sector, as well as the role of each sector for their implementation. The strategic action were aligned with the sectoral development and strategies, and also we have PKG, it's a quinquennial program for the government for 5 years. and also SDGs. Next slide, please. And for us, which challenge? As you know, we are LDCs. The financial resource, it's a very big challenge. Technology, resource, and also coordination mechanism. Another, next slide, please. And we think that for expanding access to funding for NAP implementation, we think that adaptation, it will be the first for us on the LDCs, and we believe that the largest proportion of funds should be allocated to adaptation. And also reduce bureaucracy to access the funding, and improve private sector engagement. For us, that's all the things which we think that we can move for NAP implementation, and thank you. Muito obrigada.
Gracias. Thank you very much, Ms. Kala. So we can now flip through to Mr. Hamoud Hossein to present on the side of Bangladesh. You have the floor, please.
Thank you so much. You know that Bangladesh has formulated and submitted its National Adaptation Plan to 2023 to 2050 in last year. We expect that the NAP will significantly enhance our adaptation ambitions, and we have identified 8 sectors, and the tentative cost for implementation 113 intervention, where 90 is high priority and 23 is moderate priority, around 230 billion US dollar. We will need this amount. Now I move to my presentation. We have submitted our National Adaptation Plan. Now we are in a process to implement our plan. We have identified some challenges which is moving into implementation our plan. We have identified that lack of required resources is required for our proper implementation of National Adaptation Plan. We need proper and strengthened capacity enhancement for the respective ministries and departments to prepare and submit identified actions in NAP. We need to develop a strengthened coordination among the sectoral ministries, and as well as to implement National Adaptation Plan prioritized project. We need to focus on technical assistance and investment projects by the development partners. We need to co-op competing priorities of climate change versus other development priorities at our national level, and we have to have some data and information in our country perspective to develop and implement our National Adaptation Plan, and we have to identify, or we need to research some sectors to properly monitor our National Adaptation Plan implementation. Next slide, please. For funding requirement for NAP implementation, we shall require 230 billion US dollar for 113 priority intervention identified in our National Adaptation Plan for the next 27 years, and it's equal to 8.5 billion USD per year we need to implement our National Adaptation Plan. Major portion of investment, we've identified that 184.5 billion USD will be required for water resources, almost 52%, and then urban areas 16%, disaster, social safety and security sectors 12%, agriculture 8% for sectoral scenario. And we have identified that private sector investment potential are almost 5.1%, which is equivalent to 11.5 billion of total investment cost at an annual rate of 0.4 billion US dollar. Next slide, please. We have some suggestions for expediting access for funding for NAP implementation. We think that we need to have easy access to UNFCCC funding mechanism. We need access of resources from other sources like MDBs. We need enhanced support from development partners beyond TA projects. We need public-private partnership. We have to have mobilization of domestic resources, capacity building for resource mobilization. Next slide. You know that for funding opportunity for Bangladesh NAP implementation, we have some domestic sources like Bangladesh Climate Change Trust Fund. Our government has established this fund in 2009-10 fiscal year, and almost the government has allocated 500 million US dollar equivalent amount in this fund, and over 850 projects has been completed and in progress. So we have domestic resources, we have annual development program, we have private sector investment. Apart from that, we have some access to GCF, adaptation fund, LDCF, JF, etc. And we have some other sources like bilateral and multilateral development partners. Next slide. For NAP implementation, we have taken several initiatives. I have already mentioned that we have Bangladesh Climate Change Trust Fund, BCCTF. Over the last 5 years, climate relevant allocation has doubled in our country. In our annual development program, current fiscal year annual development program, we have allocated 8.99% of our GDP for climate relevant allocation, which stands at US dollar equivalent to 3.37 billion. Apart from that, Asian Development Bank, International Monetary Fund and French government is working with our government to provide support to NAP implementation. Asian Development Bank will provide almost approximate 1 billion US dollar each year over the next few years as budget support to Bangladesh government for NAP implementation. Thank you so much. That's all from my side.
Yes, thank you very much. Yes. Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Mahmoud and also Ms. Kala. So at this juncture, I just want to open the floor for some quick reflections or questions, if there is any. Okay, yes, Paul. The mic to Paul, yeah.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to Mozambique and Bangladesh for your NAPs. I know that you did a very deep analysis and consultation, etc., to get to where you are, and congrats from the Secretariat and from everybody for this great milestone. But from your experience and some of the challenges you pointed out, if we went to 10 years ago, I think the challenges would probably be the same that LDCs are facing. So I wanted to get your reaction as to whether you see the process and the partners addressing those challenges in the next 5 years, or whether we do need to transform how we support the LDCs. So I wanted your gut reaction as to whether we simply can continue doing the same and calling for these challenges to be addressed, and people would do a little bit extra, or whether that's enough. Is that enough to carry the LDCs during the next 5 years, where the climate impacts are actually quite serious, as we have seen? Congrats once again. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Paul. So you? Who's going to start first? Kala? Okay. Yes, Kala, yeah.
For us, I think that the LDC assistant it's better on the last 5 years. For develop our NAP in these 5 years, for example, we launched our NAP on 2070, but on the middle we have some. I think that we we stop, but on the last years, how can I say, the technical assistance for the development, it's improved. It's better, and the workshops for formulating apps, which we have on last year, it's helped us to develop fast. I think that's all for my side. Thank you.
Yes, Mahmoud.
Thank you so much. You know, NAP, earlier we was in formulation of National Adaptation Plan. Now we are in NAP implementation. During formulation, we have several challenges, almost similar to NAP implementation. But during NAP formulation or preparation, we have tried to develop institutional arrangement, coordination, those things, and we had arranged national level, regional level, local level consultation with government ministries, divisions, stakeholders, villagers, all of them. At this stage, we are in NAP implementation stage. Now we have under our NAP, we have provision to constitute several committees. Our ministry is Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change is a focal ministry for NAP implementation. The ministry has already constituted several bodies for overcoming the challenges linked to coordination. So we are working on it, and one of the most challenges is fund. As a developing country, we have to depend on the fund. That's the thing. But apart from this, we are trying to overcome other challenges to properly implementation of our National Adaptation Plan. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much to you both. So, in managing the time, so we can also give them a round of applause, at least for their presentation. Yeah. Thank you very much, Ms. Kala, and thanks also, Mr. Mahmoud. So, now we can also rearrange again, so you can go to your seats. While I try to invite our colleague from the funding mechanism. So, want to call on Mr. Alicia to join me here, and also Doji. Okay. So as you know, as part of our tradition, normally for most of our side events, we do invite funding mechanism, at least to our side events, for them to present, of course, what they are doing. So for today, we have representative from the Green Climate Fund and also from the JEF, at least to share with us the support they'll be providing to the LDC. So with this, I have the pleasure to invite Mr. Alicia Mamazanuz. I hope I pronounced it very well. Almost there, I'm sure. From the GCF Secretariat, at least to provide us with an update on the support to the LDCs on adaptation under the GCF. Alicia, you have the floor, please.
It's working, yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, dear colleagues, and good afternoon to you all. Actually, my job is easier now because Gerson has provided a lot of statistics, and which are also related to GCF. So I will try to skip a bit faster in the also interest of time. But if we can please show the next slide, just reminding also a bit of the mandates that we have and support, of course, to LDC seats and African states is also enshrined in our governing instrument. And how the board has implemented this is through allocation of allocation floors for adaptation for particularly vulnerable countries to the effects of climate change, including LDC seats and African states. And this allocation floor is 50%, but I am actually very glad to report that we are doing much better. And now 2/3 of all our adaptation funding goes to this category of countries. We're also, of course, receiving guidance from COP regarding on different issues, and also, as you can see in Sharm el-Sheikh, we received also relevant guidance. There are many mechanisms of support, and a lot of them were mentioned that I will not repeat. Next slide, please. Still some statistics which maybe were not covered before. Just first, overall, the portfolio that we now have in LDCs. So this is both adaptation and mitigation. Out of 13.5 billion that we have committed so far in our funding, 4.5 billion went to LDC countries, LDCs, least developed countries, which also have attracted co-financing of 8.7 billion. So it's actually totals 107 overall projects and in least developed countries, including 16 multi-regional projects. And also happy to say that out of this 107, 89 are already under implementation. What it means that we already signed with our accredited entities an agreement for implementation, so funding activity agreements. So they are now in implementation phase. In terms of readiness and LDCs overall, so this is not only for NAPs, but overall, we have approved so far 206 readiness grants for LDCs, totaling $158 million. And now, of course, supporting mechanism, as mentioned, readiness program, project preparation facility, which helps you to go from concept node to funding proposal stage, and now going into NAPs, the numbers. So far, and this is as of end of November, we have approved 31 adaptation adaptation planning readiness proposals for LDCs, which cover 30 countries. As you know, countries can access this 3 million, which was available to them on the NAP, initial NAP window in one go, or they can divide it. So that's why one country has one LDC has actually 2 grants. And also, in terms of cooperation with LEC, we would like also once again to congratulate LEC on the start of work on the NAP implementation guidelines. Indeed, as colleagues in previous panel mentioned, we have now to go from NAP formulation to NAP implementation. It's important that countries receive that support. And those guidelines would also help countries to navigate in this process. And we at GCF, as also our colleagues from JEF, we are also in this process and ready to provide support as necessary and inputs to this process. Now going to next slide. There were recently some news updates from GCF, and we are now completing our second replenishment. There was some very good news coming actually from COP here. US pledging $3 billion, and today actually Italy pledged 300 million euros. So we actually on the path already have broke our record for replenishment. It's about $12.8 billion now, which is good news, including for LDCs. So more money will be available, more funds will be available for, including for adaptation projects. And our new strategic plan was adopted. And what is important is that this board has maintained this 50% floor that I have talked about, and also now the approach that we have is to programming in countries is centered around NAPs and LTS and NDC. So I will also show we are now in the process of developing this climate investment framework, and where we will be strategically approaching this process and building on NAPs and including on NAPs and also NDCs, how we can support through all our tools that are in our disposal countries in moving to indeed implementation stage. I will not go into details, but you have here on the slide also different priorities that we have. Adaptation is very important, especially we will go now into locally led adaptation stage, and we will also continue to focus on the most vulnerable. Next slide, please. Again, this is basically what I mentioned, but just I would like to focus here first on that now we will have on the new readiness strategy that was just approved at the last board meeting. We'll have an additional also window of support for LDCs and seeds of 320 in total for 4 years, $320,000, which they can use for specific human institutional capacity challenges to cover them for NDAs especially. So this is something new and only for LDCs and seeds, and in addition to our to the existing and foreseen by this new readiness strategy windows for readiness support. So in terms of again relevant targets, some important ones, we will support more than 100 countries in this in advancing implementation of their national strategies and priorities. What is very important again for LDCs, we will double the number of direct access entities which have programmed with GCF, so which have funding proposals approved. It means that we will considerably increase the programming that goes to direct access entities. Again, locally led adaptation I mentioned, but also private sector, local private sector the importance of innovation. And again, for adaptation, innovation is also an important aspect. We'll continue to support that. And the last slide, if we may, it's just, as I mentioned, it's still a work in progress. So this is our climate investment planning and mobilization framework. I will not go through it, but again, the idea is to focus on and starting from NAPs and NDCs and LTS, focusing on the most strategic and critical needs, and have in place a financing strategy, good planning and financing strategy, which will later include considerations how different types of financing can be tapped into, not only GCF, but also other funds, multilateral development banks, bilaterals, and also private sector, most importantly. So, because as we all know, and the numbers also colleagues showed today, the adaptation gap is in hundreds of billions of dollars annually, and public finance will not be enough for that, and we have to admit that. So we need to find ways how to attract also private sector into this, though underlining that grant-based finance is still important. So we are doing this with NDC partnership, and we hope that this work can also be linked with the important work that LEG is doing again on NEP guidelines. So it's important that we bring together these considerations. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair. Back to you.
Yes, thank you very much, Alicia. So a round of applause for him, please. Yes, thank you very much. So, colleagues, so you can keep your questions, because I know it's very critical when it comes to funding, because funding is the vehicle when it comes to, of course, NAPs. So with that said, I want to invite our colleague from the JEF, Mr. Doji, to give us an update from the LDCF. Doji, you have the floor, please.
It's working, right? Yeah. Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, colleagues. I'll actually straight away jump to the point, because given we don't have a lot of time, and picking up where Alicia left, wanted to provide you updates on some of the support that's being made available by GF LDCF Secretariat. Next, please. We operate on a 4-year Olympic kind of cycle, and this is actually the 8th cycle of the GEF period. And within that 4 years, we are actually, we completed implementing a first year of the GF8 period. So within those period, the main goal of our strategy is to help the transformational adaptations, and these are ongoing discussions here right now in terms of global goal of adaptation. So we wanted to facilitate those transformational actions at the country level. Next, please. As I said, we have completed first year of implementation of the strategy, and obviously the first year is a little bit slow, no matter whatever funding agency you look at. So likewise, we have been a little bit slow on this. I had a privilege of actually briefing the similar gathering in June, and after that we had actually 5 projects being approved by Chief Council in June, and that brings us in the first year of implementations. We've been able to support actual on-the-ground implementations of national projects for 5 countries, and those are, as you can see here, we have Bhutan, Cambodia, Cameroon, Djibouti, and Zambia. Out of that, Bhutan and Djibouti has accessed our initial allocations because, as you might remember from last presentation for GEF 8 period, the resources has actually doubled from what used to be available of $10 million in GEF 6. Next, please. I wanted to actually brief a little bit more about on the sides of, the very important theme that's being discussed here right now is about how to help LDCs to access the fund. And there happens to be a dedicated corporate programs under our strategy that actually spoke specifically in the area of how to help countries, to immediately help countries in terms of helping them to access the funding support available within the LDCF. Next, please. We have actually 3 dedicated programs, but I wanted to speak only about one of them, which is called dedicated program in trying to help build the immediate capacity needs of LDCs. And obviously the motivation, as I mentioned, is for transformational adaptation, and we wanted to make sure that there comes with such an support made available has to also come up with higher ambitions. And we wanted to provide access to all LDCs. This is one of the mantra that we have been working on, is to do not leave any LDCs behind. And we have achieved that in GEF 7, and we wanted to make sure that that coverage still stands valid during GEF 8 period as well. So on that, we actually, we had a very strong collaborations working with LDC group under the chairmanship of Madeline from Senegal. And also we have been working very, very closely with the LEG in trying to make sure that the support that we provide are being useful to all the countries. Again, I must say that these are actually a support that's being made available just as an immediate and urgent needs. And obviously we wanted to, and we have a plan for longer term support and institutionalizing those capacity buildings in a way that becomes, that remains useful and that meets the requirement of LDCs. As you can see here on the slides, we have a chair of a LEG wasn't able to attend in person, but we had a privilege of having him speaking virtually in one of our workshops in Francophone Africa back in April. And we have our friend and colleague, LEG member Jamie, I think he's sitting somewhere down there. So we had actually privilege of having him in person a couple of weeks ago. That was in Solomon Island. And I think those workshops, I think, finds very useful for many of our participants. Next, please. Next. Yep, so this is basically just wanted to present you some of the visuals because I think you have enough text to floating around on the documents and number of texts and reports that you wanted to go through, but just to give you some visuals, that the first one that we had was in Mozambique for Southern Africa back in March. We had then for 16 Francophone African in Dakar. We also had 17 African LDCs, Anglophone plus the Yemen in Addis in October. We had a privilege of speaking to our colleagues from Asian LDCs in Cambodia and similarly in Pacific LDCs. Yes, I'm well aware of that, thank you. But we are planning from here on that our non-LDC seats are also been covered during next, and the first preliminary supports where it's coming in the form of workshops. But as I said, these are not just going to be just a workshop. We have had a very good interactions, and we know what we were asked to do coming up out of that. So we are going to be delivering a very concrete long-term way of supporting LDCs. Next, please. So I am really out of time. I just want to touch base on only a couple of points. As Alicia said, we have been working with GCF where there isn't support available in readiness. We pick up on implementations. And I think just as last night, I mean, GCF and Adaptation Fund as well as Climate Investment Fund, we have one pavilion right on somewhere over there, but we had a declaration that came out yesterday, basically underscoring how we need to work together. So that's where I'll leave it, and thank you very much, Chair. Pleasure to be here.
So thank you very much, Doji, for providing updates on the supports from the LDCF to the LDC. So we can still keep our questions. So distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and I want to invite our colleague, Ms. Juliana Wolf, because as you know, as part of our work from the LEG, we established a technical working group to advance the work on NAPs and help coordinate support. So with that, our colleague, Ms. Juliana Wolf, will provide an oral report. You have the floor, please.
Thank you so much, and I'm so pleased to be here with you, with the panel members, and also to see so many countries in this very important COP28. And I know I was tasked with a certain job to talk about a very important UNFC technical working group, but let me start by saying I hope you all noticed that the emphasis on agriculture, food security, and resilience of this COP28, and there's a declaration that was launched on day 2, which is called the UAE Declaration on Sustainable Agriculture, Resilience, Food Systems and Climate Action. And this is really something I'd like to bring into the room, just in terms of there's a lot of promise out there. There's over 134 countries who signed up at the state of level. So if you go back to your countries, please use that declaration to put pressure on them and use it to argue for non-conditional adaptation finance, because that's what we're talking here. And we heard the portfolios are really important, and it needs to really step up. And I think it's really a good moment to also make it a cause for LDCs, for SIDS, for LLDCs. So just that, to place it in the context we are. I was asked probably to speak on behalf of many organizations that are part of the technical working group. And I really have to say, from our perspective, we have seen a change with the kind of mandate that was created at COP, when was it? In 2022, when the COP had invited the LEG to consider establishing the 4 working programs. And we heard already about it, right? So that's the technical guidelines subgroup, the NAP implementation support, the NAP tracking, and the multi-stakeholder forum. So now I don't have all the information, and in theory it's also the job which was already presented by the LEG to give a full update report. So I don't have that in the 4 minutes, but let's just comment from it from an agency perspective. So on the first group, the NAP technical guidelines group, I think it was such a great idea, and it's also very appreciated that the LEG opened up to consult of the new implementation guidelines with agencies and kind of where we can bring in this 10 years of work experience with countries, trying to support countries in really making this a substantive document. So I think that's really something very, very important, and hopefully will also conclude very soon. And what I also is very appreciated by the agencies is the risk-based approach, which is a key element, because it's one of the first steps to really look at the vulnerability and the risk assessment. And also to emphasize the geospatial information, which means maps, vulnerability zoning, etc., etc. On the second, on the NAP implementation support, I want to flag this very important NAP implementation development initiative that was created. And also as an agency, we've been really getting a lot of different opportunities, let's say, to comment on from a technical perspective on still the design, but also the implementation plans, often together with partners. We also see what other partners are doing, what support is provided, how we work with the NDCP partnership as well, and the NAP Global Network. So that really helps us kind of as a community to better see where we are and where there's gaps, and provide, and of course the information from the GCF and GEF does help us to really fast track in some way our support, because the better we can see where there's a lag. So thanks always to flag, okay, there's these 10 countries who really need support. That's really important, because otherwise you have a lot of transaction costs and time going by until you mobilize the support. On the third, the NAP tracking group, I'd like to say that this is also a very important group where FAO, just to give an example, has been working on and proposing an M&E matrix paper in terms of tracking adaptation progress. And I think this is where there's still a little bit of work to be done, because it's not just like the moving into implementation, it's actually qualifying and quantifying what we mean as progress. And I also know that next year will be a crucial year in 2024, where we take, where UNFC and the LAC will take stock in terms of the progress. And I think this is where we need to hear from countries where you are and what are the biggest gaps, and not just the finance gaps, it's really at the national level, the institution building, the availability of domestic and international finance, etc. And last not least, on the multi-stakeholder forum subgroup, this is very important in terms of the just transition we hear so much here at COP. So the inclusiveness and in terms of indigenous peoples groups, smallholder farmers, private sector, this is really the opening up in making it. And that's really one of the treasures, let's say, of the NAP instrument, to make it an all of government, but not only that, an all of society approach that really leads to implementation. And this is also where it's really important, and I saw the report on the NAP Expos. The NAP Expo is such a core heart moment where we can enjoy kind of exchanging with really the countries, but also the agencies, and as a kind of NAP family of sorts, to really move the agenda forward. So please keep doing that. It's really important to us, and we'd like to contribute as much as we can, and I hope the other agencies not being allowed to speak today feel represented in some of the things I've been saying. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Ms. Eulenia and Wolf, for the updates. So, colleagues, before we start the question and answers, I just want to take this time to recognize current and past LEG members that are in their room, in this room. Please, maybe you can show your hands, at least for you to be identified. Jamin is here, okay. All right. And you? Okay, thank you very much, yeah. So this is just a show of hand, of course, about what we've been doing as a LEG, and at least the pool of membership we've had previously and also currently. So with this, I think we can now open the floor for discussion, question and answers. So the floor is open for any questions or reflection you have. Yes, Ben.
May I say thank you. Again, my name is Ben Kamo, former LEG member from Liberia. As you know, Liberia and Nepal were the first two countries to benefit from the Green Climate Fund in terms of the NAP formulation. First, let me take this time to say a big thank you to the Secretariat in terms of providing the necessary guidance and support. And thanks to the donor community for providing the money in terms of supporting the LDCs. And then a big thank you to our implementing partners for working with us. Now that we have completed the NAP, it doesn't mean that you leave us alone, because completion of the NAP is just one step, and then the implementation is a major step. So moving into 2024, I think we need to strengthen or accelerate the relationship in terms of identifying at least major projects so that we can take advantage of the GCF. Other than that, we will be complaining, but there will be no need to complain because the GCF is ready to support us. So I will urge our implementing partners not to leave us alone, but rather to keep working along with us. Thank you.
Yes, and thank you very much, Ben, for the reflection. Any other further reflection? Okay, we have a hand there.
Thank you. My name is Ronjournerina from the Ministry of Environment of Madagascar. I would like to come back to the challenges faced by the LDCs in accesses funding. Mozambique suggested earlier that bureaucracy involved in accessing funds should be reduced. But I would like also to add that one of the challenges faced by the LDCs is the difficulty of procedures of the accredited entities. Maybe LEG with the different mechanism funding should engage discussion on this issue. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. So, yes, that is well noted on the side of the leg. But nonetheless, I think before we take any other reflection, I can turn to Doji and also Alicia if you have any reflection to that particular remarks. Yeah, Alicia, please. Yeah.
If I may start, because accreditation was mentioned. As I showed on my slides, we have a goal now, and we need to set by the board to double the number of direct access entities that have projects funded through GCF. So it means that we will need also to continue to support direct access entities. NDAs first, when they are nominating direct access entity and then supporting them, they have to go through accreditation process, but then also then support them to produce projects so that they would be able to do that. So I'm glad to report that in the next readiness strategy, there is also a separate window for $1 million for 4 years to support direct access entities, exactly in that process. So for them to go through readiness, within readiness to go through, to prepare for accreditation, submit accreditation proposals, but also afterwards support them to build their capacity to be able to produce concept notes. So this support will be available.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much, Aisha. Doji?
Yeah, the way we deliver our support is actually not through accredited entities, so probably that's not very relevant in terms of questions, but we provide support through agencies called GEF agencies, and I think this is one of the we had to be very clear about the various policies and procedures put in place in GEF for people to be able to access, and I think one of the key difficulties we realize from the country perspective is that there is always this lack of clarity on what needs to be done in terms of, when you prepare the project. So that was one of the reasons, the motivations, just like Alicia said, for us to have this various series of sub-regional workshops. Idea was to get people to understand how it works. And obviously agencies are important partners, but for us, it's a country that needs to decide. And that information, that piece of information is very, very important for countries to be empowering themselves to make decisions on priorities and procedures of GEF. So that was the whole intention, and I think we will work further on this.
Okay, thank you very much, Georgie. So maybe we can now take the last question. Yes, Madam. Okay, we have 2 more. Okay, we have 3.
Thank you. Thank you, LEG LDC, for conducting this important event, and thank you for GCF, GEF, and FAO. I would like to thank them for support us in Sudan for implementing many projects in accordance of adaptation and mitigation in their cycles. And by now we have finalized the food transforming system pathways, about 5 tracks. We are highly needed to be supported in implementing these 5 tracks because this momentum had gained by food system and food security in this COP by that declaration. So regarding the capacity building gaps in accessing and simplified process to how to develop fundraising projects and so on, we need some finance to be allocated for this implementation of our new strategy in food system pathways. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Can you please introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Sumaya Abdou, working for Ministry of Agriculture and Forest. I am a forester working for Forest National Corporation. Now, many projects implemented by GCF for mitigation and adaptation in Sudan in our organization. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So we'll take the questions and then we'll come to the answer and then we close. So next, our colleague over there.
My name is Patrick Nkobajira from Environment Affairs Department in Malawi. I wanted to understand something. I've heard of I think the GCF having a facility called the Project Preparation Fund. Yeah, I wanted to understand more about how it works, if particularly if there is a ceiling of project that a country should have, particularly the size of a project the country should have to be able to access this fund, and how many times can a country access this facility? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So the last person, you have like 1 minute for the question, please. Book closing soon.
My name is Augusto Pinto from Timor-Leste. My question will refer to Alistair from GCF. In our case, from the National Directorate of Climate Change, we are the one of, I think the first directorate eligible to GCF readiness in terms of the direct access modality. And we went to the FMCA 3 or 4 years back. But then, last year, GCF requested to reapply for FMCA. So, from LDC member state, why should we do that again? Because, we have a limited capacity and resources, and you have, like, you set up this certain criteria that for countries need to apply again for the FMCA. So I think maybe this is you need to take into account here.
All right. Thank you very much. So I'm back to colleagues. Just 1 minute quickly to reflect on the question. Alicia, please.
Well, impossible in 1 minute, but just very quickly. So PPF accredited entities, so direct entities or international accredited entities can have that support and up to $1.5 million, depending also on the needs of the project. So this is, again, as I mentioned, to go from concept note to finding full funding proposal. On FMCA, so just let's be clear, so this is not called accreditation, right? So FMCA is to become a delivery partner for readiness. This is a different story. And I cannot comment because this is every case is unique. Maybe we can talk after this. Yeah. On overall support, glad to hear that Sudan has been also receiving some support. But generally, of course, whenever you have needs, it's important that NDA is also works actively with potential, if you have a direct access entity or with international access entity, accredited entity to generate project ideas can be then become concept notes that will be submitted to us, and in the end can come as funding proposals for our board to consider and potentially approve.
Yeah, very quickly. So I think for us, country decides where you want to put money on. Obviously, of course, this has to be in line with your national strategy and NAPs and other important guiding documents that lays out. So we don't have any set-aside resources under LDC for particularly if so that actually decide on how you want to spend money. For example, we have $20 million for Sudan. So that's up to you how you want to spend based on your national strategies plans and other priorities, adaptation priorities of the country. We don't have facilities as such in terms of the project like GCF, but what we have is we have something called Project Preparatory Grant. So that's tied to individual projects. So I mean, these things are all available. I'm happy to take it offline at any time, given the time constraint we are facing here. Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you very much. So distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we have now come to the end of the program. So just want to say from the side of the leg and the secretariat, thanks to everyone for making time to attend, and also join me to thanks, of course, all the speakers for this particular event. So in conclusion, just quickly take note that we'll be having also today a high-level side event on National Adaptation Plan that is scheduled to take place from 7 to 9 p.m. today. So you can also invite your ministers, head of delegation, also you're very safe to be there. Of course, there will be also simultaneous translation, and to be taking place in meeting room 3. Thank you very much, and see you, of course, by 7 to 9. Thank you.